Before I start, hit subscribe and turn on notifications, because if you've ever been left for dead by the very people who swore to love you, this story is for you. I'm about to tell you how I crawled out, one breath at a time, and why I will never ever let them rewrite what they did to me and my child. My name is Imani, but people call me Mani. I'm Black, American, born and raised in a working-class corner of Detroit, where summers smell like cut grass and hot asphalt. I was 23 the day my daughter arrived, and the hospital room was cold enough to make my teeth chatter. I remember the way the fluorescent lights hummed and how my own breath fogged the little window in the NICU, as if even the air was praying. Her name is Zara. She came into this world with lungs that struggled to keep rhythm, a little heart that thought about each beat before it offered it to me, a rare condition the neonatologists called complicated, chronic, and uncertain. They listed medications and machines like a grocery list of hope. I heard every syllable and felt each one sink through my skin like ice. My husband Darius stood by the incubator with his jaw tight, a storm bottled behind his eyes. He had always carried his pride like armor, polished shoes, spotless car, full swagger. We were high school sweethearts who turned into grown people overnight, the kind who imagined our life like a music video, slow-mo kisses, family cookouts, baby giggles under string lights. But Zara's first cry wasn't the triumphant trumpet we'd scored for the scene. It was a thin, stuttering whistle, and I watched Darius flinch. By the second night, he stopped bringing me coffee. By the fourth, he sat in the chair, scrolling when the monitors spiked, industrial beeps mapping my daughter's fight like Morse code. On the seventh day, he said it out loud. "I didn't sign up for this, Mani. This is our daughter," I said, my voice cracked from sleeplessness and prayer. "She's ours." He was quiet, the kind of quiet that makes you think you're standing at the edge of a cliff. "You don't understand," he muttered. "It'll drain us. The bills, the time. People gonna talk. We can try again." I slapped the metal rail so hard it rattled. "We are not replacing my child." He didn't come the next day. My phone buzzed only once. A text. "I need space." He never said he was leaving, but when the rent was due and the car note bounced, I understood what space meant. My mama Evelyn came by with the same expression people wear when they're about to perform triage on a dream. She brought soup and mamas, and then, like needles under skin, the little comments. "Baby, sometimes God gives us more than we can handle, so we can learn to let go." I blinked at her, trying to find the God in that sentence. My Aunt Rochelle said, "A sick child can curse a marriage." My cousin Tina folded onesies in my lap and whispered, "Think about your future." None of them said the words "give her up," but they set the table for the idea and pushed me toward the chair. On discharge day, I strapped Zara into a second-hand car seat with hands that trembled. A nurse named Mali, a woman with warm eyes and locks tucked into a neat bun, pressed a crumpled sticky note into my palm. "Support group. Thursday, 6 p.m., followed by an address and a smiley face. You'll need people who say yes when everyone else says no," she said. "You're not alone, Mani." I was alone. But I took the note. Back home, the world was louder than the hospital. Sirens, neighbors arguing, tires on wet pavement. Inside our apartment, quiet sat like a third person on the couch. I learned the language of machines, the way a pulse ox blinks when the universe forgets to inhale, the soft hush of a nebulizer turning air into medicine. I propped Zara on my chest and counted her breaths with the ticking of our cheap clock, promising to the ceiling that I would match each of her struggles with 3 of my own. If she would fight, I would fight harder. If she would leave, I would become the woman life required. Bills became origami swans I folded and hid in drawers. I took the bus to a cleaning job at a medical office at night and back before dawn, Zara sleeping in a sling against my heart while I wiped countertops and whispered along to gospel songs in my head. I stitched up my pride and took whatever I could find. Daytime babysitting, weekend bakery shifts, washing hair at a friend's salon. Zara's stroller parked in the corner, oxygen tank quietly exhaling like a second mother. At the support group Mali had written down, a circle of folding chairs felt like home in a way my own blood no longer did. We were an orchestra of tired laughter, moms, dads, a grandmother with arthritis and a grandson who called her coach. There was Cam, a single father who brought his boy in a superhero cape and offered me rides when his pickup ran. There was Nadine, who swore by sticky notes and worked nights at the waffle spot, showing up with leftover waffles and stories that made us snort into our coffee. We passed advice like bread. We nursed one another's hope until it started nursing itself. When Zara was 9 months old, Darius reappeared like a sore throat you thought you'd beat. He stood in the doorway with a fresh haircut, clean sneakers, and the faint smell of someone else's perfume. "I've been thinking," he began, as if the phrase could lift us back to the day we didn't know the cost of breathing. "People saying you can't handle this, Manny. Maybe we should, I don't know, give her to someone better equipped." "Someone better equipped," I repeated, tasting rust. "Who, you?" He glanced around the apartment, eyes landing on the oxygen tank, the stack of med instructions held together by a borrowed binder clip. "This ain't a life." "For who?" I asked. "For you?" He said something about a new job out of state, about me being free to start over. He said the baby would be fine, that these places had resources. He didn't mention that he'd stopped posting about fatherhood on his Instagram the week after she was born, or that his new girlfriend, Jasmine, with the perfect nails, liked to write "a blessed" under everything he did. "Leave," I said finally, the word a stone. "And don't bring strangers' opinions into my child's lungs." He left. That night, fury curled up beside me and let me use it as a blanket. Rage, when tended right, can be a clean fire. I decided I would feed it with work, and only work. I enrolled in a part-time medical assistant program at the community college because if doctors were going to speak in code, I would learn the language. I watched videos in the pale light from the gas station across the street while Zara slept against my shoulder, and whenever the fear chewed at me tuition, time, oxygen bills, I thought of her first cry, the way it chose survival despite the odds. I whispered, "We're building something, baby." Brick by brick. 3 months into the program, Cam's pickup broke down for the last time. He sold it for parts and bought a used minivan. "Now it's a taxi service," he joked. "You, me, Nadine, and whoever else needs a ride." On Thursdays, we rode together to the support group, and for an hour I forgot I was carrying the sky. We built a rotation for hospital visits. We shared hacks, coupons, grant applications, clinics that handed out samples and actually smiled about it. Then came the custody papers. Darius's name was sharp in black ink. He wanted joint legal custody, the kind that would let him decide Zara's medical care and her education from 1,000 miles away in Atlanta if he felt like it. If I didn't agree, the papers implied, he would fight. Maybe he thought I would fold because my job titles came with small checks and my nails were always bare. I took the bus to a legal aid clinic and sat in a lime green chair while a lawyer named Miss Cho read my life like a map. He hasn't paid child support, she observed. He hasn't visited. He's petitioning now because the baby didn't die. It was a statement, not a question. Is that how people think? I asked. Some people, she said, not unkindly. We are going to respond. We'll request primary legal and physical custody, plus back child support and a medical expense plan. Start keeping a detailed log. Every medicine, every doctor visit, every time he doesn't show. Dates, times, receipts. And don't say anything to him that you wouldn't want read in front of a judge. I became a librarian of survival. I saved everything: appointment printouts, pharmacy stickers, texts, photos of Zara's charts with the identifiers blocked out. I numbered the pages and bought a binder so big it clicked like a jaw when I closed it. On the front, I wrote our names in thick marker, Imani and Zara, evidence of love. At night, I studied for exams and made flashcards for words that used to terrify me: apnea, tachycardia, congenital. I practiced drawing blood on an orange until my hands were steady. When I passed certification, the clinic where I'd been mopping floors for months offered me a front desk job that grew into vitals, intake, and a steady paycheck. For the first time since the NICU, I exhaled without checking a monitor. Who watching your baby? Mama asked one afternoon, suspicious, like peace was a visitor she didn't trust. Miss Grier from church daycare, I said. They do medical accommodations. I pay with my money, Mama. She's thriving. People still talking, she warned, like gossip was a hurricane we ought to evacuate for. Let them talk, I said. They can't rewrite what they didn't help carry. The court date crawled toward us like a thunderhead. The night before, Nadine babysat so I could iron the one nice blouse I owned, the color crisp enough to slice regret. I looked in the mirror and saw cheekbones that had learned to hold me up. In the minivan that morning, Cam squeezed my shoulder. You got this, coach, he said, passing me a lukewarm coffee and a good luck Snickers. I tucked them both into my purse like talismans. Inside the courtroom, Darius wore a navy suit and a thin smile. Jasmine sat behind him, eyes lined like armor. When the judge asked him why he sought custody, he talked about doing the right thing and a child needing her father, and he didn't blink when he said he had always provided. My lawyer raised an eyebrow like a question mark. Miss Johnson, the judge said, do you have a response? I stood, palms sweating, and opened my binder. I did not cry. I did not tremble. I told the whole truth, nothing but, guided by dates and times and the clockwork of a mother's memory. I spoke about the nights, about the oxygen, about how every breath had a line item. I spoke about the support group, about the way community had stitched me back together. I spoke about my job, my certification, the daycare, our routine. I did not insult him. I just refused to carry his lies. When I finished, the courtroom was quiet in that way that makes you believe maybe, for once silence is listening. The judge tapped her pen. Mr. Fawn. King, she said to Darius, requests like yours are meant to protect a child's best interest, not a grown man's image. Primary custody will remain with Mrs. Nez. Johnson, you are ordered to pay child support and contribute to medical costs. Visitation supervised, pending proof of consistency. He looked like someone had pulled a plank from under him. I looked at my hands and realized they'd stopped shaking. Winning didn't erase the past. It didn't call back the nights I counted Zara's breaths in the dark like rosary beads. It didn't fix the way family can fracture and call it practical, but it put a stake in the ground with our names on it. It said, no one gets to show up after the miracle and claim they prayed the whole time. Time learned how to be kind in small ways. Zara grew from fragile to fierce. Physical therapy taught her legs to trust the floor. Respiratory therapy taught her ribcage to open like a stubborn door. She learned to say, Mama, and then more, and then outside, and then blue, pointing to the sky like she had invented it. Some days we still had alarms and urgent drives and doctors who spoke in maps. But there were also playgrounds and blue raspberry popsicles and the kind of laughter that makes other mothers look over and smile. At the clinic, patients recognized me in the grocery store. You the one with the braids and the running shoes, they'd say. The one who keeps it together. The office manager asked if I'd consider coordinating patient resources, the kind of job where you hunt down grants and get someone a breathing machine that insurance kept hostage. It didn't pay a fortune, but every time I printed an approval letter, the sound was a hallelujah. One afternoon, Marley, the nurse from the NICU, who had slipped me that first note, walked into the clinic. I recognized her by the way she held a chart, like it was a living creature. She blinked at me, then grinned so wide I saw the girl she might have been at a block party. Manny, she cried, as if we were cousins spotting each other at a wedding. We hugged like survivors. She looked at Zara in the stroller. You grew a whole sunflower, she said softly. Look at her. That's when I knew the next chapter was calling me. I started an Instagram account, Breath by Breath Mama, posting the essays I wrote in my head at 2 a.m. when the world was quiet. I told the truth about Medicaid hold music and found family potlucks and how sometimes you dance in the kitchen not because you're happy, but because you need your body to remember joy. The account grew like a rumor people wanted to be true. Brands slid into my DMs with offers, monitors for review, humidifiers, stroller adaptations. I wrote back only when the thing was something I would have fought for anyway. I refused to turn my daughter into content. She was a person, not a campaign. A local radio producer invited me to tell my story. Then a journalist. Then a daytime talk show that led with an audience clap track and ended with a check to honor your strength. I accepted, not because I was a hero, but because money in a savings account felt like a door I could close against winter. After the episode aired, we got a letter from a foundation. We were approved for a small home oxygen system upgrade and a mobility grant that covered exactly the stroller I had been staring at for months. I cried in the kitchen while Zara played with a plastic spoon. We're doing it, I whispered into her hair. We really are. And then the phone calls started. Mama first. Baby, she said, voice careful like stepping stones in the dark. People talking about how strong you are. We proud. We. That little word tried to borrow my light. I said, thank you, Mama, and left it on the porch. Aunt Rochelle called next with a casserole and a prediction about forgiveness being a dress you can wear to any party. I accepted the food. I let the prediction drift out the window. Family is a house with 100 rooms. You get to lock the ones that still smell like smoke. The last call was Darius. I'm in town, he texted. Want to see Zara? I'm better now. Hurt is funny. It can sleep in your bones and wake up at the exact vibration of one person's name. I stared at the screen until the letters blurred. Then I texted back, visitation through the center, like the court ordered. Saturday, 2 p.m. Be on time. He was late by 40 minutes. The visitation supervisor noted it. He brought a teddy bear with a bow so large it looked like an apology made of satin. He held Zara like she was a loaf of bread. She blinked up at him and said, "Hi," because she was built from grace in ways I still study. He asked about her condition, and I answered like a nurse reading a chart. He asked about me, and I didn't answer at all. When the hour was up, he stood bare dangling and tried to look into my eyes. "You look good," he said, a little surprised, like it offended him that I had found happiness without him blessing it. "I'm proud of you, Manny." "You don't get to be proud of me," I said calmly. "You can be respectful. You can be on time. You can be a safe presence or a distant one. But my pride? That's mine. I earned it carrying what you dropped." He flinched just slightly. He nodded, and for the first time in years, I believed a nod could be a form of honesty. Here's the part that might sound like revenge, and maybe it is. Maybe it's the soft kind, the kind that doesn't stab back, but simply refuses to bleed on command. Months later, I hosted a community fundraiser at the church hall, the same church where Aunt Rochelle once whispered that sick babies ruin vows. We were raising money for families like mine to cover copays, taxi rides to hospitals, rent when the overtime disappeared. The hall gleamed with fold-out tables and aluminum trays steaming up the windows. People came with dollars and casseroles, with raffle baskets and earrings they made at their kitchen tables. I stood at the mic and told the truth again, because it had set me free once and seemed to like the job. I told them about breath and beeps and binders. I thanked Marley and Miss Cho and Cam and Nadine and Miss Cess Greer. I did not thank my husband. I did not thank my family for finally seeing me. They could love me from their seats. The stage was for those who had stood in the rain with me. After my speech, Mama approached with wet eyes and a plate of lemon bars. "I was wrong," she said, a whisper that sounded like skin finally healing. "I thought I was protecting you from a life of hardship. But you were protecting that baby from a life without her mother. I'm sorry. I let her hold the apology between us. I didn't rush to take it. I let it earn its place." Finally, I nodded. "I hear you," I said. "It'll take time," she nodded back, and we stood together in a small, honest silence. Darius didn't come. Later, I saw he'd posted a photo on social media him at a bar, captioned "Family First." I almost laughed. Instead, I put my phone face down and helped Cam stack chairs. Nadine boxed leftovers and labeled them with sticky notes like tiny love letters. When we got home, Zara fell asleep with her hands thrown over her head like she'd conquered daylight. I sat at the kitchen table and counted the crumpled bills and checks people had pressed into my palm. Enough to start the fund. Enough to build one more brick. I opened my laptop to write the post I'd been saving for months, the one where I finally said the last quiet thing. I typed, "To the ones who left, you don't get to return as heroes after the fire has turned to ash. You don't get to claim you smelled smoke the whole time. We remember who brought water and who brought wind. We remember because remembering keeps us alive." And to the ones just starting, standing in a hospital hallway, holding the world in a blanket, hear me, you will learn a new way to breathe. You will learn to call strangers family. And one day, the ones who couldn't carry you will ask if they can hold what you built. You will look at your hands, at the strong thing they've become, and you will say, no. Or you will say, not yet. Or you will say, only if you show up every day and learn the shape of this love. Whatever you say will be right because you, yes, you are the author now. I hit post. The comments filled up with women who had fought systems bigger than their bodies, with men who had learned how to hold their children and their pride at the same time, with grandmothers who knew that sometimes love means unlearning what you were taught in churches and kitchens. I read until my eyes blurred and the room turned into a soft, forgiving watercolor. Before bed, I stood over Zara's crib and listened. The night was quiet again, but this time quiet didn't mean alone. It meant peace. It meant our machines were resting. It meant the house was a chest and we were its heartbeat. I don't know what tomorrow will ask of us. I don't know if Darius will ever earn the right to be more than a supervised visitor. I don't know if my family will learn how to love us without trying to reduce us. But I do know this: they called my baby a burden, and she became my blessing. They said I wouldn't survive, and I became the woman I needed when I was 19 and thought love would always stay. If you're still here, if my story touched something in you, hit subscribe and share this with someone standing in their own hallway, blinking under hospital lights. Tell them Manny said, breath by breath, brick by brick, love by love. That's how you build a life no one can take from you, not even the ones who tried.